Hello and welcome to this episode of Filmi Ladies. I am Pitu, this is Beth, and today we have with us the ghost of Rishi Kapoor, uh, who is being very sassy. Which is perfect because today is book club day and we are discussing his autobiography Khullam Khulla, written by Rishi Kapoor and Meena Iyer. And if unless you live under a rock, you already know who Rishi Kapoor is. He was a great actor. He was a wonderful dancing star. He was a master of the duffly. He was the qawwali king, like you've heard in our qawwali episode that we recently did. He was one half of the amazing Rishi and Neetu on-screen and off-screen pair. He was one of the biggest names in the already very big Kapoor Khandan. And most importantly, he was a messy bitch and he has spilled a lot of tea. And this book is just chock full of gossip. So if you're a gossip monger like Beth and me, you will enjoy. And hopefully you've read this book. And if you haven't, we'll tell you what all is in it. So Beth, did you expect this book to be as messy as I told you it would be?
So I went back through Twitter, which is basically my diary at this point in my life, right? Like I tweet about the things that matter to me mostly. And I had started this book when it came out and I got about 20% through and then I stopped reading it. I don't remember why. It was 2016 or 17, early 2017.
Yeah.
So things here in the United States were not good. And I had some other stuff going on, but and I looked at my tweets and I said basically, this book is messy. Back then, and I don't know why I put it down because it's a great read. It's an easy read. It's a little repetitive, it's a little disorganized, but it's really fun. You do just kind of feel like he's chatting at you.
Yeah.
And I kind of once you get a little taste, I feel like any taste of this book is accurate for the whole book, right?
Yeah.
So like if you get a sample of messy and all that at the beginning, I think you'll be satisfied all the way through, especially like me, if you care about vintage film gossip, but you don't care about now. I don't care about now film gossip. These people, I don't care. I want to know about this generation and their forebears. So this was perfect for me. And I can't believe I had not finished it in the first place.
Yeah. What I loved about it, well, there were two things I loved about it. One, it just like went for it. Like literally from the prologue is boring. It's just Ranbir Kapoor singing his dad's praises. So it's like, fine, whatever. But then literally from the first chapter, it's like, boom, my father had affairs. And I was like, I'm not prepared for this. So I like that he just like went for it. And I'm not sure. I'm assuming that Meena Iyer, who's like the co-author, is really the one who wrote the book and he just like ranted to her or something. Yeah. But the voice is perfect. It really does sound like Rishi Kapoor. And it sounds like Rishi Kapoor is just talking at you and you're a captive audience.
I had forgotten how great he was on Twitter. I'd completely forgotten that, but he was a good tweeter back in the day. And he refers to his Twitter account a little bit in the book, but yeah. I somehow had forgotten that. But yeah, he was one of the good celebs to follow on Twitter. And it did have that same feel to me.
He basically had no filter. He had no diplomacy whatsoever, which is what makes his autobiography so much fun. Can you imagine reading the autobiography of someone who's very like diplomatic and goody-goody, like, fake goody-goody, because no one's that goody-goody. Right. It would be so boring. It's like Amrita Rao. I don't want to read her autobiography.
What I loved about it most is that it is candid, but also it does have some analysis to it, right? Like he is very uniquely positioned in a lot of ways to talk about a lot of things. He is on this cusp of shift of types of cinema, or at least one of several cusps, right? So he does actually share some observations. It's not just the fact. So a lot of the facts of his life we all know or could easily find out. So it's this kind of behind the scenes and relationship stuff that is interesting and new. And then his kind of, here's what he sees happening in changes in cinema. Here's how he sees his own career. I actually thought that was quite interesting. And it's not the most eloquently phrased. It's really not. It's very blunt and it's not as in-depth as I would wish in some of that stuff, but at least there's some of it. And I really enjoyed that.
Same. I did too. There was especially the parts where he's like ranting about Amitabh Bachchan. I love that because this is gossip or complaints about Amitabh Bachchan that I've heard, that I've read about from other celebrities of that generation as well, where there's like rumors that anytime Amitabh was co-starring with someone, because they were always like, it was always like Amitabh and some other dude, right? Like that was most of his famous movies.
Sure.
Even Parvarish that we spoke about last week has that same thing. And I read that he would basically go up to the writer or the director and essentially like blackmail them into like cutting other people's roles and giving the best dialogues and the best songs to him. And the way he would do it was in a very shady way, which I can believe, which he would basically wait until they had shot quite a bit and then be like, okay, because now you can't get rid of him. And I was just like, that is Machiavellian. Now, that is not what Rishi Kapoor is saying. That's what I've heard otherwise. But he does rant about Amitabh in his book where he says that that man has essentially never ever given credit to a single co-star, and he only talks about like writers and directors. And I wonder if there was more goss that Rishi wanted to give but didn't.
I also feel like that's not quite true, because I feel like I've seen Amitabh be fairly generous about Shashi Kapoor.
Oh yeah.
And I've never paid attention to what he says beyond that, because that's all I really care about his perspective on particularly, although his autobiography will be great someday if he ever does it.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Shatrughan bitches a lot about Amitabh. Not that you and I care about Shatrughan, but just saying, like Shatrughan is also equally blunt.
Yeah, I can imagine he's not the world's easiest co-star on set or, you know, after or in conversation or whatever. So I can see that.
Yeah. What parts about the book were the most surprising to you?
I think just okay, I'm not sure quite how to phrase this. I feel like so it did really lay bare the connectedness of the film industry, in that these people know each other and they work to get to know each other in certain ways, and they work with who they like and or who they think will make sense for the project, and whether that's just profit or it's artistic or both or whatever. So that hearing that from someone so very intimately connected was good, because it was useful in sort of understanding how films work. Just the importance of personal connections, which is why I make the Kapoor family tree chart that I do, and why people are interested in this kind of thing, because it's about relationships.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was interesting how much more intercultural his world was, than like the Modi fawning celebrity pictures we see now, right? Like he talks about the Muslim families that he's close to and the artists that he worked with, and sings praises equally across the religious and communal board. And that feels very important to hear right now. And that world, I'm not going to say that world's gone, because I don't know, but speaking about it publicly seems to be gone for the moment, at least. And I really admire, and I guess I was a little surprised, probably just because I hadn't thought about it, how, you know, the world that the Kapoors, especially Raj Kapoor, lived in, worked in, created, developed, and that his son inherited and tried to take forward in certain ways. And when I say his son, I'm always referring to this one. I don't care about the other two. Like,
you mean you don't care about Rajiv Kapoor?
I mean, I'm gonna even put him aside because he barely did anything, but Ranbir Kapoor is terrible actor, in my opinion. Like, his best contribution to cinema is his daughters. So like, I don't,
that's savage.
But I felt like there was a lot of respect in what Rishi says and how he says it. And again, it's blunt and it's fairly quick and breezy, but I do feel that there's quite a bit of respect there. And to hear someone say that and to be reminded of that in a time where that is very lacking, what was a surprise to me, and maybe, or just my own reaction to it was a surprise to me. And I was really, that made me feel good to read, you know. How about you?
The parts that I love the most, actually, and that was kind of like a revelation to me, which I don't even know why it was a revelation to me, was where he talks about his childhood, where he was like, he would come home from school and there would be all these like film industry bigwigs in the room. And to him, they weren't bigwigs. They were just these people that his parents knew. I mean,
uncles.
Like, he's so chilled about it. Yeah, like the way that you and I might have had neighboring aunties and uncles who just drop in, except the names he's talking about are like the big names, where you're like, it's the Sippies and the Chopras and like and I'm like, what the heck? And then he talks about how like all night they would have like these music jam sessions where the music
Yeah.
directors, and he was allowed to like, hang around as long as he wasn't being like problematic or annoying or whatever. And I was like, that just sounds like such an insane childhood where you're just this cast of characters that just rotates in and out of your house, like revolves in and out of your house, is all these gigantic names. And you're just so blah about it. You're like, yeah, that's how my life was. And I'm like, what? So I just thought that was like fascinating. And I also like the bit where he was, I mean, I'm jumping a little bit, but where he compares filmmaking then and filmmaking now. And he talks about how they would have these, Raj Kapoor would have these all night events where the music director, the music composer, the instrument playing people, what are they called? Instrumentalists, thank you. The singers, everybody would be there. They would just hunker down for the night and they would just be churning out tune after tune after tune. And he says in the book, and I can believe him, that even the tunes that were rejected were better than the tunes you have now. And I was like, what? And then he speaks about how he sees Ranbir Kapoor's movies, music being made. And he's like, Ranbir is here in like a studio. And then his music composer is in London on Skype. And then some lyricist is in like Spain or whatever. And they're on Zoom. And he was like, nobody cares. And they just like remix stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's why music nowadays is so shitty, But I just found that interesting. And it reminded me of something. Did you know, like, the Veer Zara soundtrack is basically all recycled. So Madan Mohan, because Madan Mohan apparently had come up with these tunes a really long time ago. Yash Chopra was going to use them for some movie, and then he didn't, but he liked the soundtrack, so he just kept it, waiting for a time to like revive it. And then when he made Veer Zara, he basically took those songs. Like for 30 years or so, those songs were just there. But essentially, that's kind of the stuff that he's talking about. So I found that very interesting, where he basically talked about sort of the dedication and the earnestness that they had back then, and how now it's just kind of like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And we don't care if the movie's shit or not. So I like those bits.
Well, at the same time, he also freely admits a lot of the films he's been in and some of his contemporaries were also shit.
Oh, yeah, of course. They were also shit.
Yeah. And he talks about a lot of his kind of, that didn't work. And I wish he had gone into more why it didn't work.
Right.
Because again, I think he's pretty interestingly positioned to be able to talk about that, but at least he admits it.
And he's clearly very intelligent. I mean, you can like, this was no like dummy. This is like an extremely smart person. But I also find it funny when he talks about his friendships with like Rakesh Roshan and Jitendra.
So cute.
So cute. But I love the bit. He basically is not just being Khullam Khulla about his own life. He's also like spilling the tea with his friends. And I was like, did your friends know you were going to say this about them? Because there's the bit where he talks about how Jitendra's films were just flopping left and right. And I was like, rude. And then Jitendra started getting these offers from the South, and he's like NT Rama or like whatever. And he started doing these like absolutely terrible movies that all had the same formula. When it was, and I've seen some of these horrible films on TV where it's like Jitendra, Jayapratap, Sridevi, or Bhanupriya or someone. It was the same recycled plot, and they were all shot in 18 days, 18 days in Madras. And he talks about how terrible they were. And he said to Jitendra, why are you doing this drag? It's horrible. And Jitendra was like, do you know how much money I'm making? I'm making no money here. I'm making pots of money there. So I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah. I just thought that was hysterical, where he was just like, well, he did it for all the money. And apparently Jitendra was like, you should do it too. And he was like, no, thanks.
Like, I'm a Kapoor. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to go to the hotel, sun and sat and play billiards. Thanks.
He didn't quite say that, but it's pretty, the thing about I'm a Kapoor, I won't, but
but it was very apparent.
I think he doesn't pretend not to have the privilege he does. He does talk about, it wasn't enough just to be Raj Kapoor's son. I did have to work at it. And what he doesn't, he's very kind about his brothers, actually, I thought. Yeah. But I think that example, if you know anything, is right there. Like, he's the most successful of them by far. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think, and he's not quite the same generation as Shashi's kids because of the age.
Right. He's older.
Shashi, but these sort of like half generations. He's also by far the most successful of them. So
yeah.
he's by far the most successful of the three Kapoor brothers offsprings, right? So,
Yes.
I think that he gets to, I think it's fair for him to talk about this kind of stuff. And he did obviously have something different than what the rest of them had. And he did something different. I also get the sense from the book, and I don't think he flat out says this, but I got the sense that his father is most interested in his career of his siblings. Would you agree with that?
He's more interested in Rishi's career, you mean?
Raj is more interested in Rishi's career than he is in
Probably.
Rishi's brothers, I think.
Because I think that's the impression I got as well. But I think it's because Raj Kapoor was very astute. He was a businessman.
Yeah.
He was a film producer and director. He was 25 when he started RK Studios, which is a gigantic feat. I mean, Yash Chopra did that in his 60s.
Yeah.
To put it into perspective. And I think he probably just knew that neither Randhir nor Rishi had it. Randhir or Rajiv had what it takes. Right. I'm sure that there's a lot of star parents out there that have no objectivity whatsoever, and they think their child is just gonna like rule the film industry. But I think for someone who's a producer and director like Raj Kapoor, they can probably look at Randhir or Rajiv and be like, yeah, there's not going to be much return on investment with you. Right. I'm not going to bother.
I also wonder if, I'm not super well versed in Raj Kapoor's films as a director. I've seen quite a few, but not all, and I've never really read up. But clearly one of the things that he is most known for and most loved for to this day is songs.
Yes.
His use of music. And Rishi is a very good inheritor of that interest. Now, obviously, Rishi, I think he's just directed the one film, right?
Yes.
But he knows how to sell basically any song.
He really does.
And it's obviously the qawwalis are, some of our favorites, but I was watching, so I've never seen Prem Rogue, and I was watching that last night. And I got through about the first third of it, and then I turned it off because I wasn't into it. But even the songs in there, which obviously is one of his father's films, but like the character that he plays at least in the part I watched is kind of there's not a whole lot of going on with him, but he still sells the heck out of these songs.
He really does. Yeah.
He's so good at songs. And so is his son, in my opinion. Like this family knows what
not as much as Rishi, I don't think.
Not as much as Rishi, but still pretty darn good. So
Rishi to me really is kind of like the gold standards with songs. I think until Shah Rukh came on the scene, I think Rishi was my number one. Because the thing is, other actors could do certain things. For example, Shashi Kapoor is great at romantic songs, like, songs from Sharmili and Jab Jab Phul Khile, like adorable and cute. But he can't really dance, and they didn't give him dance numbers and, stuff like that. And then Amitabh Bachchan, he's like just so meh in songs to me. Like he's not like a song for me. He looks good when he's just like brooding and he's not lip syncing. That's fine. But no one does it quite like Rishi until I think Shah Rukh came on the scene, because his chemistry with some of his heroines, especially Neetu, like I still think they just light up the screen or my laptop on fire when they're in something like Tere Chehre Se Nazar Nahi Hatti from Kabhi Kabhi. I mean, the way like they're just frolicking in the snow and he just like grabs her hair like that, and he just the camera angles that he gives to the screen and the way he like makes eye contact. I mean, no one can do it like Rishi can. I think I had a giant crush on Rishi when I was growing up because of his songs. I didn't really watch his movies. I just watched his songs.
Yeah.
My parents used to get these cassettes from our grocery store uncle in Nigeria, and they were compilations of songs basically, and it was called Naye Nagme, and it was just like a number. So it would be like Naye Nagme 65, Naye Nagme 66. It would just keep going, Naye Nagme 87. I was like, it's just the numbers just kept changing. And we would have like Naye Nagme 87 in our house, and then my dad would bring Naye Nagme 104. There's no connection. And I would just watch those because I would just be like, hey, whatever. I like these songs. They're cute dance numbers. I also found it funny where he quotes Neetu Singh in the book as saying that she actually doesn't think that Rishi Kapoor is a good dancer at all. She just thinks that he has like yutzpah and rhythm, and he sells it on screen, but he's not actually a good dancer. And I had to like think about it. I was like, is he not? Because he sure seems like it.
I think it depends on what you mean by dance, right? Like, are you going to give him classical dance? No. and he's not claiming to either, right?
No.
So like when we say Madhuri is a great dancer,
Yeah.
we mean several kinds of
She's
things. With
technically
Rishi,
perfect too. Yeah.
and with Rishi, I think we mean a different set of things. But if it
Yeah.
means choreographed or semi-choreographed movement to music to
Yeah.
express things, then yes, he is a great
Yeah, he
dancer.
is. So I was kind of like, what is Neith? Is she
And
just
I
like
love
yanking
that
his chain?
I love that he called out his uncle Shami, who obviously gets, because he was like, basically like, he just went in there and flailed around. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, we all see that. I feel like you're not allowed to say that, but it's clearly
I
true.
say
Like,
it.
I love watching Shami Kapoor songs, but they're not, and again, it's using movement to sell something. Yes. So then by that qualification, he's a good dancer, but Rishi is definitely several notches above
Yeah.
Shami, I would say. I put Shashi
Oh,
kind of in the
100%.
middle, and then Rishi is obviously better. So I just, he's such a, he fell at such a great point in film history of heroes moving to dancing more in kind
Yeah.
of what we mean by dance when we say it now, with certain kinds of music, with having a space to be what were we talking about? Oh, when we were talking about kind of Feroz Khan and his version of masculinity,
Oh, yeah.
and stuff, and then other male stars in the 70s. The Rishi Kapoor is the urbane,
Moneyed.
usually well off. Yeah. And he talks about that. Like, he's like, no one's
Yeah.
putting me in the like poverty porn movie.
No.
Look at me. Like, yeah. Urbane lover boy, usually educated, all that kind of stuff, kind of bratty.
Yeah. Yeah.
That there was room for that in cinema at that time, because the version that like his uncle Shashi did is like that, but different. He's not
Yeah.
bratty, right? So like there's
Yeah.
kind of and just again, all the things that kind of came together and that he helped shape and create an audience for. So these
Right.
things work together. So I just thought that was really, really interesting. And it did make me want to go find a humongous Rishi Kapoor song playlist, because again, I've seen a lot, but I haven't seen all of them. And even in films that aren't good, I bet there are songs that are really fun.
Oh, yeah.
So I need a Rishi list.
I was trying to think like who were his competitors. Like I'm not talking about like the Amitabhs and stuff, because that's like a different ball game. I'm saying
Jitendra, right?
Did. And Rakesh Roshan.
Yeah, but Rakesh Roshan, I feel like
but
as
he fizzled
star
out.
is never at the level of Jitendra and Rishi Kapoor.
But I think that attempt was being made. Like if you watch Khel Khel Mein, Rishi and Rakesh Roshan pretty much have equal billing in that. Like they're co-stars and like they have like heroines and everything. But then you look at Rakesh Roshan as just a damn squib. You're like, no, I don't want to see you on screen. It's fine. So it doesn't sound like he had that much competition. If Jitendra and Rakesh Roshan are a competition, that's not a ton of competition.
No, but he does talk about being sure to, like, is there space for me when Amitabh is still ruling the box office for what, 1973 or 4 till the early 80s?
Yeah.
Which is when Rishi, what year is Bobby? 72 or 73?
Yeah.
When he really hits it big. So it's and I think it was good for his career that he has these multi-stars in the middle. Like he's got Amar Akbar Anthony in particular is in there. So yeah, but then very quickly in the 80s, you get Anil Kapoor and Jackie Shroff and people like that. So he really is kind of in this, we talk about generations, but really it's much smaller chunks. It's like every 3 or 4 years, an audience wants a new hero, right?
Yeah.
Or at least we want to pretend we want a new hero.
Right.
And they say like, which generation is which? It's not a generation. It's like a high school class. It's
like a little blip in time. Yeah.
And some of them last and some of them don't. But like when we think about, he talks about this and somewhere in there, like, oh my God, I blank on names every time I get on this podcast. I don't know what's wrong with me. Amir's nephew,
Imran Khan.
Thank you. He was so huge for like
he was adorable. I loved
4 or 5 years, and now he's completely gone.
Well, he couldn't act.
If you started watching Hindi films now, you would not even know he had been a thing. Like he doesn't pop up in uncle roles or dad roles or anything, right? He's just gone.
Quit. Yeah.
But he was huge for like 4 or 5 years. And Rishi, there are always people like that. And Rishi, I mean, and one of the things I loved hearing him talk about was like, I was a hero for a long time. I don't think he quite said longer than I should have been, but I've heard him kind of refer to that in interviews. But then he talks about what being a character actor has meant to him and his character roles when he starts naming those films. And the end of the book does have his filmography by year.
Yeah.
And it's somehow he has a film come out every year between 1973 and his death, except 1998. Every single year.
That's crazy.
Almost 50 years. That's insane. I mean, the man is working. And he talks about just kind of what the chance to really dig into these character roles has meant to him. And I was so glad to hear that, especially when he talks about Agnipath, since we talked about that film in our Playing Against Type episode, but some of his other character roles. And it did make me want to seek some of those out too. And even the ones
I loved him in
like,
Do Duni Char.
Right. Do Duni Char is so good. If you haven't seen it, it's really lovely. And of course, he's always good in things like Hum Tum, where he's the dad, or what's the Ronnie and Seth film where Rishi Kapoor she's an angel? Remember?
Oh,
it's kind of Mary Poppins-ish.
I vaguely know this movie. Tararam Pam? No. Yeah.
No, that's the race car.
I haven't seen this movie, but I know what you're talking about.
I have seen it, and it's cute enough, and it's got that great song "Lazy Lumhe" in it. I love that song.
Oh yeah.
But Rishi plays God basically, or like a higher up angel. I mean, you're like, yes, perfect, great. And it made me miss him again, and kind of think about like who, and even Kapoor and Sons. Also, first of all, can you believe Kapoor and Sons is 7 years old now? I feel like that movie just came out.
I know.
And he talks about how much work the makeup was and everything in there, and how hard it is to do multiple takes when you're in the school of acting he's from, but then also wearing all this prosthetics that took hours to get into and stuff. That was interesting, but that's not my favorite performance of his. I remember finding it a little hammy, and like the makeup is too much and stuff, but I still think he was good in it. And I think he always brought something to these kind of roles. And it's something different than what Amitabh brings to his elder statesman role.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, Rishi in his older years is not. Actually, Rishi has never been annoying to me. I liked him when he was young. I liked him when he was middle-aged. I liked him when he was old. I just haven't liked Amitabh at any stage.
Rishi, I feel like, because he physically looked older than he was early, like in Creme Rogue, which is 1982, I think he looks older than 30 in that film to me. But partly it's just the era, and partly it's him, and partly it's whatever he's doing with his hair. And
partly it's also the Kapoor genes. I read
the Kapoor genes can be rough.
I read a very bitchy thread recently, like on a message board, where people were talking about Ranbir Kapoor. They were like, "Why is he looking so old and miserable?" And people were like, "Well, he's a new dad. Like, what do you expect?" Also, he's past 40.
He's 40. Yeah.
But they were like. And then people were talking about other people who are 40 but don't look as old or whatever. Like, there was this whole like shallow discussion going on about, and I was of course enjoying it and like eating popcorn and reading the whole thing. And one person was like, listen, the Kapoors age badly.
The men do not age well.
It's all the drinking and the smoking. Shashi looked very, very good until then he got very sick. But yeah, Shashi is the only one.
And he worked hard. Not aging.
With all the other people, it's like their lifestyle really does catch up with them, like the alcohol and the lack of sleep and the smoking and Rishi Kapoor talks about his lifestyle, and he talks about who was he was talking about someone that he really liked, like a co-star that he really liked, and he wanted to hang out with them, but he couldn't because that person would be done by like 9:30 and go to bed, which I was like, that is me. And Rishi talks about he would start drinking at 10:30
and have dinner at 10:30 or whatever. I
was like, no, he was like, we start drinking at 9 and then we have dinner at 10:30. I was like, that is not a dinner time. What is wrong with you?
When do
and
you
he was
sleep?
Already middle-aged. Exactly. Especially when you're working as much as he is. So it's just like this horrendous lifestyle. And people were like, listen, all the Kapoors, they look good until they're like about 30. And then they all start looking bad. And by 40, they're like over the hill because their lifestyle catches up with them. And I was like, that actually makes sense.
But also he was cast opposite women much younger than he is, which just exaggerates the difference. And like, we still think, we're like, Shahrukh is looking real old to be against Deepika right now, even with digital smoothing, whatever else. But they hadn't had the digital smoothing in the 80s. Right. And Rishi Kapoor is looking very, very much older than some of these.
Rough.
and while he is still dancing, the way these the people can move their bodies in these songs where they're in theory doing like related choreography, even if it's not identical, like, it's catching up with you, man. Like fast, it has like outpaced you. Your aging has outpaced your actual age. And then by the time you're a character actor, you know, it doesn't matter so much. But again, when we talk about like Agnipath, still sells the heck out of a song.
Yep, he does.
Still knows how to do a song.
I do think that he kind of like overstayed his welcome as a hero.
Agree.
Because to me, one of the most egregious Rishi Kapoor songs, especially when you compare him with the young upstart, is Sochenge Tumhe Pyar Kare Ke Nahi, or, you know, the songs from like Divana. He's struggling. He's struggling.
And then
you have
so
Shahrukh
young,
and Divya. Divya Bharati was like, what, 19? She was really just this young doll-like person. And then there's Shahrukh just spilling with like beans and bright-eyed and bushy tail. And then there's Rishi Kapoor, and you can practically hear his joints creaking.
And he's supposed to be some kind of like amazing popular musician. No,
he's
sir.
So
no.
Stubby.
But like I don't want to be like body shamey. I really don't. He looks, but he just conveys uncle.
He does.
UNKIL uncle. You know?
It's also the fashions, because I mean, the jerseys and the sweaters and the turtlenecks that you have looked great when he was young.
Where's your sweater?
I'm wearing a sweatshirt.
I went to my sweater shelf, and you know, I live in Illinois, so I need a lot of sweaters. I don't have any multicolored sweaters, and I was like, oh, how can this be? I should have gone to the thrift store to get one for Rishi Kapoor Day.
Oh, I have to tell you this story. This has nothing to do with anything, but it's just me being me. So I have a lot of like colorful, bright things in my closet. It's sequins and all, because I'm a child of the 80s, okay, and I'm proud of it. So anyway, one time our common friend Christy and we were in Chicago, and we went to like a Marshall's, and she kept picking nice things, like, you know, neutrals and like very sophisticated things.
And we should say that Christy worked in a law office, so she is a lawyer, so she had to look, you know,
Christy was an attorney, and she dressed like an attorney, and she's showing me all these. She's like, oh, I like this. Oh, and she's showing me like a champagne colored, you know, silk top and a black jacket. And she's like, look how lovely. And I'm like, and then I'm showing her all of these things, and she was just like that. Finally, I showed her my favorite sweater, which I actually wore in the Party Songs episode. Oh, yes. It's beige, and it has sequins everywhere, multicolored sequins, mind you. I waved it at her from across the aisle at Marshall's, and I was like, Christy, look, I love it. And she was so tired of me at that point. She just sighed, and she goes, you are not drawn to elegance.
Well, I feel like
that just became our line.
You can go shopping with Rishi Kapoor any day.
I can.
He said he had 600 sweaters, I think.
But he also said they were all destroyed. And by the way, he doesn't call them sweaters. He calls them jerseys. Which I was like, what? And then he said they were all destroyed because they were all hung rather than folded.
Right, they stretch.
You shouldn't hang knitwear. Yeah. So it was like, they're all destroyed. And I was like, what?
They're not destroyed. They're just stretched out.
Off. Yeah, but he's a Kapoor, Beth, so they're destroyed. I mean, he ain't gonna rewear that.
No, but he could put those on Poshmark, make a handsome portion.
But he's a Kapoor, so he doesn't need to. I feel like we're projecting our middle class values onto him, and we shouldn't.
Not middle class, not in any way.
Not poor.
You know, here's the thing. Speaking of class, I expected, and I'm not sure why, kind of a stronger middle class uncle outlook on life from him than I got.
Middle class? Why?
Well, like, you know, like as you age, you get more conservative, like that kind of, I didn't get that off of him.
No, I don't think so.
And he's obviously not like a liberal firebrand or anything, but you know, there's things about the Kapoors as a system that are conservative. And he doesn't seem to really fit into that super much, with a couple of exceptions that probably
no. But the whole thing about never wanting his daughter to be a heroine and essentially forbidding her from it. And I was like, dude.
That's one. Yeah.
That was like glaringly bad to me,
Yeah.
because you can talk about how like modern and progressive you are, but if you literally do not want your child to have a career based on the fact that she's a woman,
Yeah.
then that's just, nothing else matters then. Like clearly your core values are super
And they
conservative and
went,
orthodox.
the book goes to great lengths, including from Neetu herself, to make it clear that it was her choice to give up
Right.
acting and stay home with the family and all. And I sigh, and I guess I have to believe her. It's so complicated. But I think that
Yeah.
was the argument that they were anticipating. And she has a whole chapter at the end of the book talking about what it's like to be married to
Yeah.
him. If I recall correctly, and I should have checked before recording this, the Kapoor bio by that I've
Oh, I know
talked
who
about
you mean.
before, I am pretty sure that book says that Neetu took the kids and left at one point because of his drinking. And they do not say that in this book. And they in fact say they never spent any time apart. And I was like,
There's apparently, and I don't know how true this is or not, but there's like gossip that I've heard for a really long time, and it was published in Stardust as well, I believe, that Neetu had actually filed a police complaint, an FIR, against him at the police station in Andheri or something, where she was like, claiming that he like beat her and stuff. And then I think she withdrew that complaint later. Of course, I'm not going to allude to that in the book, but I feel like Ranbir has made a lot of veiled references in his interviews to his parents having a really rocky marriage, and he's talked at length in many of his interviews about how they would fight all night, and it was very traumatizing for them. But of course Rishi does not mention any of that. So I did find that a little bit hypocritical, because here's
it's
the
a lot
thing.
hypocritical.
Yeah, because if you're not gonna, and it's fine if you want to present this very sanitized version of yourself, and so you don't want to talk about how bad your own marriage was, but then you don't get to talk about other people's bad marriages and then criticize them. So that's where I found it to be a double standard, where he's like, he won't admit to his own shittiness as a husband, and yet he's more than happy to throw his father Raj Kapoor under the bus, literally from chapter 1, where he's like, my father was madly in love with the leading lady of his films, and my mother took the children and moved into Natraj Hotel for 3 months. And I'm like,
I think these are all things that are not good.
Yeah.
But there's a difference and I can see why this would feel different to him. It's one thing to admit to an affair, is another to admit to beating your wife. Those are different.
Yeah. One is morally bad and one is literally criminal and can land you in jail. And you probably should keep your mouth shut unless you want to go to jail.
Both may have very bad effects on your children. Both can destroy trust and all sorts of things, obviously. But I want to walk back my statement about conservative uncle. It's what do I mean? He's a little curmudgeonly about
he's very curmudgeonly.
But like songs today, I don't really like them as much. And he said he hasn't even watched all of Ranbir's films. I was like,
he probably hasn't watched Ranbir's best films, would be my guess.
Yeah, because he said he hadn't watched Rockstar and he hadn't watched.
He said he didn't like Rocket Singh at all. I was like, what is wrong with you?
Right, Rocket Singh, yeah.
How can you not like Rocket Singh?
And he admits to like Besharam is not good. I remember Besharam not being good, but also it was fun to watch the family together. Like I still enjoyed it for that. But he doesn't do as much like, oh, kids today, kind of thing as I thought I thought he might. So that's actually what I mean. So yeah, he does obviously have conservative aspects to his life, and he is capital P problematic and then some. And when we get Ranbir's bio someday, maybe we'll learn about that, because Neetu is obviously not going to say it.
Nope. I feel really bad for Ranbir every time I have seen interviews of Rishi or Neetu or Ranbir, because Ranbir has literally said in multiple interviews, and he always looks so sad when he says this, he's always talked about how his father essentially only criticized him, never ever praised him, which is amazing to me, given that Ranbir is extraordinarily talented. And he talks about how it just feels very, dare I say, emotionally abusive. Like, you pretty much only criticize your child constantly and never praise him. And yet it feels like Rishi Kapoor himself enjoyed so much praise and coddling to some extent from his own father,
Mm,
Raj Kapoor. And I'm kind of like, okay, so you were kind of like the golden child, and your dad had pinned his hopes on you because your brothers were clearly useless. But you just seem so harsh towards he just seemed so harsh, and I think it's what made him entertaining on Twitter, because he was
mm,
snarky and
yeah.
curmudgeonly. But I wouldn't want a dad like that. it
No.
just it
Oh,
just
no.
seems so
No.
mean, just needlessly mean and prickly, I feel like.
And he does say that like Neetu and Ranbir are friends, and I'm not
Yeah, of
friends with my
course.
son. And I think it's
Yeah.
okay not to be friends with your parent, with your kid. Like that's a different relationship. But it does sound like he was not warm. Um, Maybe didn't offer as much of his own wisdom as he could have. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't,
Or
it's
he
hard to know.
tried to offer his wisdom, but again, that was criticism constant, because like he literally talks about how he thought that he argues with Ranbir Kapoor about his movie choices, and he told Ranbir not to do several of the films he's done, including Rocket Singh, because he was like, this is not going to make you a star. And Ranbir was like, no, but I want to prove myself as an
As an
actor,
actor,
which is
yes.
so smart and which
Yeah.
works great.
And has
But
worked.
he's
Yeah.
basically, and has worked, but Rishi Kapoor is basically constantly telling him, don't do this. And it's like, okay, first of all, times have changed. And
Which he admits. I think
yeah,
he does say like, this is a very different world than what I was doing. And what I did to be a hero is not enough anymore,
yeah,
which is a very
hmm,
interesting thing to admit,
right,
right?
yeah,
Like basically he's saying, I probably wouldn't make it if I were trying to become a hero now. He does not actually say that, but I feel like
yeah.
that's kind of an underscore. And he says like Rishi, Ranbir wanted to go to New York and learn da da da. And I was like, okay, like it's not, that's not my advice for you, but okay, you know.
I found that really funny too, where he talks about how Ranbir wanted to go to New York to study, and his SAT scores were so poor that he couldn't get in. And then Rishi Kapoor happened to mention it to Merchant Ivory, I think to Ismail Merchant, and Ismail Merchant called up the school in New York and said, "You just denied admission to Raj Kapoor's grandson. Do you even know what you did?" And they just like gave him admission, and I was like, "This has Wake Up Sid written all over it." I was like, holy privilege. Like, oh my God, to
Yeah.
have the kind of family where an uncle, a friend of the family calls up your college of choice and says, hello, yes, Pita would like to get admission to Harvard. Please make it happen. Thank you so
Because,
much.
so I work in higher ed and educate in America, and my parents did too. Like a lot of people here don't know who Raj Kapoor is, and that call would not mean
Right,
anything. So like
right.
it happened to land with the right people, and that happened to, was it James Ivory or was it Ismail Merchant? I forget which of them it
It
was,
was
but
one of
like
the, I forget who
it
it
was
was.
either
Yeah.
Merchant or Ivory, which so obviously if you're in a performing arts school, you certainly know who Merchant Ivory are. So like I get it, but it was
Yeah.
just like that was a lot, very lucky, because if you'd mentioned it to Rakesh Roshan, who gives a crap,
No.
right? Right. Or if
Yeah.
you'd mentioned it to Prem Chopra,
But I feel
that
like in
probably
the
wouldn't have done
film
anything.
schools, everyone would know who Raj Kapoor was.
I really don't know. I really don't know.
Really?
I know a lot of people who are into world cinema, and they do not know who Raj Kapoor is. They know who Ray is. They know who
Right.
Ghatak is, but they do not know. I don't think they really know who Raj Kapoor is. Or they might have
Okay.
seen like clips of the Charlie Chaplin inspired Raj Kapoor
Yeah.
stuff and kind of left it at that, right? Because that's
Right.
unfortunately that's not going to sell him to people who know Charlie Chaplin already. um,
Right.
so yeah, I don't think a lot of, I'll just say Americans. I don't much be in that. I think a lot of Americans, even who are into world cinema, do not know who Raj Kapoor is, or do not particularly care who Raj Kapoor is, right? Like they may know the
Right.
name, but that doesn't mean
Right.
anything to them.
Yeah. But yeah, I found that very funny where he was just like, yeah, he called up the school and got him admission. I was like,
Nice. Must be nice for some.
must be nice. Did you find it funny where Rishi Kapoor talks about the dearth of heroines for him, where he debuted, I mean, he worked with
Yes.
the most number of debuts, like 30, I think he mentions, right? Because there
Yes.
just weren't enough. And that made so much sense to me, because I used to
Yes.
wonder about that.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think, as I've mentioned, I heard him on stage doing an interview in London talking about all the heroines he's debuted opposite, and like the thread that I walked out with was because he's too old. But the way he tells it, and I see his thinking, is
Yeah.
that there weren't women stars who fit his vibe and the vibe that Raj Kapoor was trying to get going for him. And when Dimple debuted and then instantly disappeared again, he was kind of left with like, what do I do? And like
Yeah.
until Neetu, and that kind of makes sense. And it's a little icky, and it obviously underscores what we all know about the hero-centeredness of things. But
Yeah.
it does actually sort of make mathematical sense in some ways,
It
at least as
does.
far as I can think through. And like I'm sure there were many people who he could have been paired with had someone given them a chance, but they
Oh
didn't
yeah.
get a chance. So that was quite fascinating.
Yeah, it was really crazy to me because I was thinking about it. Like, I actually sat down and I was like, okay, so who were the big heroines at that time? And then I was like, well, Zeena's going to look terrible with Rishi. Parveena's going to look terrible with
Yeah,
Rishi.
like
Prema's going to look too old with Rishi.
Rishi
It's
Kapoor,
just,
Parveen Bubby, like that makes no sense
no,
whatsoever.
I
And
don't want that.
I don't know
No,
why, but I don't like that idea. And I
it's
love
no,
both
I
of
don't
them,
like
but
it.
no,
No, Rishi with Rocky makes no sense.
no,
Rishi with
that's weird.
Sharmila makes no sense. I was
No,
like, I kept throwing out these names and I was like, no, no, no. But all of those names look good with Amitabh.
yep.
Like Amitabh Rocky, Amitabh Sharmila, Amitabh, like
And
those
Shashi even,
combinations
right?
work.
Like, yeah, but
Yes,
it doesn't,
which
and
is an
even,
even older generation.
right.
But
Or
then with
Feroz Khan,
Rishi,
but yeah.
yes, but with Rishi, it just he needed someone who had that same teeny bopper moppity vibe that he had, and Dimple had it, and then Neetu had it, and in between, it was just this like revolving door of like all of these women that kind of sort of did, but then they didn't have star power or they couldn't act. Like someone like Ranjita, like on paper,
Mm-hmm.
Ranjita would work, but then she can't act to save her life, and then it's like, okay, no. So it's like, let's try this. Okay, no. I kind of liked his vibe with Padmini Kolhapur, actually. I thought they were really cute and Pembroke. And I actually really like him with Poonam Dillon. Like they're so cute in Ye Vada Raha. And she has that mappity, teeny boppery vibe, because I always think of Poonam Dillon when I think of that song that she has with Sachin. What is that song?
Oh yeah.
Gapuji Gum Gum. Yeah, like
Yeah.
she has that same kind of thing happening. So I feel like he didn't. And then you can't imagine Rishi with Shabana. Rishi with
No,
Geeta
that's
doesn't
weird.
work. No, that's terrible. There's so it's true. Like when he said that, I was like, gosh, that must have been frustrating when you're like, well, I want to do all these movies, but like I don't have anyone to act with.
Shri Devi was not in Hindi films yet at that time, right?
I
So,
don't know.
because I think they would have
She
been good together.
came to do
Yeah.
Chandani. Remember, there was that bit in the Romantics or somewhere where they said that Yash Chopra asked Boni Kapoor to go talk to Sridevi's mom in Chennai and convince her to do Chandani. And Sridevi did Chandani only for the money, apparently. That's it. That was the selling point. And her mom had
Oh yeah.
reservations about Sridevi being dressed in white throughout because she said it's not done to put your heroine in white. And they were like, no, we have a vision. So, and plus when Chandni came, Rishi Kapoor was already in uncle mode.
Yeah, and her first major Hindi film is Solva Sawan in
Mm,
1979. So yeah, that's a little late compared to his
yeah.
debut. But I like energy wise, yes. But
Yeah.
obviously the
Oh,
timing wasn't there.
you know what would also be a terrible energy? Rishi with Rekha. No, don't want.
Or she would eat him alive.
I know. She would be the crocodile. She would be the snapping alligator and
Bye,
Kundalwan.
boy, bye.
I was WhatsApping you and Amrita the other day where I told you that because I was listening to the songs of Fana because I love the music of Fana. The movie's terrible, but I love the music. And I had YouTube on and that song came Mere Haath Mein Tera Haath Ho, which I love. I love that song so much. And I saw the visual of Kajol and Amir and they throw me off. They look so oil and water together. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can't. And I had to like minimize the window so I wouldn't see their faces because they have the weirdest chemistry, man. What is it about these on-screen pairs where we just like really ship them or we're just like, no, get away from me? I don't know what it
I
is.
don't know. I don't know.
But
Were
that
there
was interesting where he talks about that.
were there is there anything he said in the book that made you want to watch a film of his you haven't seen or rewatch something you haven't seen in a while? Because I did actually underline quite a few films that I'm like, oh, I've never seen. I don't even know what that is. Like I gotta see that. Prem Rogue was one of them. There are a couple others.
No, I actually feel like I've watched a ton of his movies, mostly because I was a captive audience. Because when I lived in India, they showed his movies a lot on TV, actually. First of all, he has so many movies.
Yeah.
And second of all, his movies always had good music. So if there was like a Rishi Kapoor movie being shown on like Z Cinema or Sony or Star or whatever, one of the three or four channels that we got, I would pretty much be like, yeah, I'll watch this. Even if I don't watch the whole thing, I'll watch at least part of it. So I feel like I saw a lot of his films. I've even seen a lot of his terrible movies that he did when he was really struggling, where he was in hardcore uncle mode. And he did actually do some of those like South films, like the ones that, hi Minu, that Jitendra was telling him to do. I've seen some of those as well, and they're ghastly.
Nah.
Um, but I've seen those. Um, so I feel like I'm pretty well versed with his filmography. Um, I
I've never seen Laila Majnu, and I clearly need to.
mm, yeah, like I actually also think that he's a terrible director, and I'm glad he didn't continue directing because auobiography is a slog. I don't like that
So
movie.
I saw that movie fairly early on in watching Hindi films because I love Akshay Khanna. He was my first, like, oh, who's this? And oh, yeah, speaking of conservative, like that movie is a
It's awful.
stinker.
And I love Aishwarya, but I don't like the
Oh
Aishwarya and Akshay Khanna
boy.
combination. It is very strange. The whole movie is just very like, huh? I don't like
So
that movie.
awful.
And then there is that terrible movie that Rajiv Kapoor, the youngest brother, directed, which is Prem Granth, that has
Right.
Rishi and Madhuri, and that is horrendous as well. It's actually a retelling of Tess of the D'Urbervilles, which is like such a good book. And I was like, how dare you destroy it? And I was like, how dare you? The ghost of
Okay.
Thomas Hardy will come and smite y'all. But yeah, that was terrible. And then didn't Ranbir Kapoor direct a movie? Oh, Henna.
Yeah.
That was actually not so bad. I thought that was okay. I mean, clearly none of these men were meant to be a director like their father. It really actually shows what a ginormous talent Raj Kapoor was.
Right.
That he could act, he could direct, he could produce. He was a shrewd businessman. He had such a keen sense of music. And then you see some of his attributes, but not all in Rishi, and you see none of his attributes in Randhir and Rajiv. And you're
And
like,
I
oh
feel
dear.
like, I've only seen a couple of Prithvi Raj Kapoor's films, and really only one where he's the hero, which is Sikandar, which is
Ah,
so good. If any listeners haven't seen it, like, please watch Sikandar. It's on YouTube
Prithviraj
with
Kapoor and
subtitles.
Burga Khote, right? I think.
I think so. And I can't even remember who else is in it.
He looks very handsome, I
Oh
have to
gosh.
say.
But then I
Extremely
feel like even
handsome.
in that one role, you can see the three sons, like you can see bits that they either inherited or copied
Yeah.
or whatever, or
The Kapoor
his
genes,
influence.
man.
Those Kapoor genes, especially in the men, they are strong, but you pay a price.
Have
Being
you
part of the
seen,
dynasty it comes at a heavy cost.
well, you've seen pictures of their sisters, right?
Right.
Ritu Nanda and Reema Jain. Oh my God, it's like copy paste. It's literally like,
It's
here's
weird.
Randhir Kapoor copy and
Yep.
then paste it onto a woman, and
Yep.
that's Reema Jain and that's Ritu Nanda. They look identical, all
It's
of
very
them.
hard. It's weird.
It's Ranbir actually looks different from them. Ranbir looks so much like his mother because he
There
has
was
like this
go ahead.
longer face and
Yeah.
like his features are different, and he has the droopy eyes, and
Yes, the
he's
Nitu
not
eyes.
quite
Yep.
as, yeah, and he's not as fair as they are. He's taken after his mother's complexion. He does not look as much a Kapoor to me, but the rest of them are just like copy paste all through. Karina too.
There was a movie, there was a moment in Prem Rogue in a song where they're, a bunch of different costumes and all, where Rishi has on like a fake beard kind of. And I was like, oh, I'd never noticed how much he and Ranbir look alike until right there. Like he looked
Ah,
like Ranbir to me. And I think it's because of the
interesting.
stubbly look that Ranbir
Yeah,
has a lot.
yeah, yeah.
But I was like, wow.
And the elongation probably of the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah. It was
Ah,
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. What are your must-watch Rishi Kapoor, either songs or films for
Oh my God, all of his
list-making
movies
purposes?
with me too. I
Yeah.
love those. Like I love them in Kabhi Kabhi Together, and that's just such a
Yeah.
good movie in general.
Yeah.
Like it's such a watchable movie. I like them in Khil Khil Mein a lot. They're
Mm-hmm.
really cute. Rakesh
Mm-hmm.
Roshan lets down the side a little bit. It's fine. And then Khil Khil Mein was actually remade as Khiladi, which is also very watchable. I've
Mm-hmm.
always enjoyed that. It was Akshay Kumar and
Mm-hmm.
Deepak Tijori, with Deepak Tijori being his annoying self. Um, I do like Prem Rogue very much, but
Mm.
I'm a sucker for VP movies. So
True.
I love it. So I like it because it's weepy. But if you don't like weepy movies or like social reform movies, then Prem Rock will not appeal. What else do I like of his? I love Sagar with
I've not
Dimple. I love Sagar so much.
seen
Have you not
Saga.
seen Sagar? You must watch it.
I have to look that up. I can't remember if I've
Just the
seen that or not.
songs alone. It's Rishi, Dimple, and Kamal Hassan's Hindi debut, I believe. I think that was the
Ah,
first. No. Kamal Hassan's Hindi debut was with Rati Agnihotri, Ek Duje Ke Liye. But he was in Sagar. It has the best songs, man. It has Chehra Hai Ya Chand Khila Hai. It has Jaane Do Na. Chehra Hai Ya Chand Khila Hai is just spectacular. And Dimple looks like $1,000,000 in this movie. It was her comeback after getting divorced from Rajesh Khanna.
yeah, I have not seen this, but I
Oh, you should see
probably,
it.
yeah, it
Their
looks fun.
chemistry is amazing. Also, I love Bobby. Bobby is hard to not
Sure.
like. Bobby is just
Yeah.
so cute and adorable. Fun fact: my cat's name, my mom's cat, is called Bobby because she's
Aw.
black and white, and so my mom named her after Dimple Kapadia's outfit in it, where she's wearing the micro mini and the white polka dotted tie front blouse.
Such
So
a cute look.
yeah, she adopted this like little orphan kitten, and then she during the pandemic, and she sent me a picture, and she was like, "Meet Bobby," and I was like, "That's your cat?" And she was like, "Yes." And I was like, "Why Bobby?" And she was like, she sent me a picture of Dimple Kapadia and the white top, and I was like, "Brilliant."
That's
Yeah, I like
adorable.
Bobby. I like all of his teeny bopper movies. This is a weepy and a very sad movie, and it's an art movie, but it's worth watching once at least. It's called Ich Chadar Melisi. It's with Hema Malini, and it deals with this social issue in Punjab, where in Punjab in olden times, let's say that there were two brothers and the older brother died, then the younger brother had to marry the widow, and like how that's weird because she's your sister-in-law, but now she's your wife and all of that. And so Ich Chadar Melisi is because the custom is called Chadar Dalna or something like that. I don't know. So Hema Malini plays his sister-in-law in it. It's actually like a really good film, but it is a little bit depressing, and it's an art movie, but that's really good too. So I think those are kind of my favorite Rishi Kapoor movies. What about you?
I mean, I'm not going to name anything people won't expect and haven't seen, but I mean, Amar Akbar Anthony,
Oh, yeah.
obviously, One for the Ages.
I love him in that. Yeah.
Yeah, these 70s kind of multi-stars in particular, I really like. Although I was talking a couple episodes ago in trying to watch Yash Chopra's all his films, that Vijay is that's a terrible movie, but Rishi I think is good in it, and he and Anil Kapoor play friends and then enemies and then friends again, you know. And that's an interesting pairing. Like that's kind of a hero pairing that I was like, and I was like, oh. And of course Rishi is the rich one, Anil is the poor one, and like,
of course.
It totally works. It totally works.
Are there any other Rishi and Anil movies that you can think of? I can't. Where they were together?
He talks about some in the book. I feel like there's maybe one other in the book, but he does talk about how much he likes Anil Kapoor as an actor. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because Anil Kapoor and Jackie was very common.
Sure.
Like Ram Lakhan and all of those things.
I really like, I mean, as I've said, Agnipath, Doduni Char is adorable. I haven't seen like his last 4 or 5 films, and I'm sure I probably will at some point. Not. There are so many.
But I do also like Chandani, just saying.
Oh, I have issues with Chandani, but it's not his fault. I just think the story's kind of, I mean, his like stalker room full of her photo is very, very upsetting to me. And then how you watch her look at it and she looks horrified and then she looks happy and you're like, oh girl, no.
I would like that. Does that mean I'm very narcissistic and vain?
Maybe.
That would be the way to my heart, Beth. A room full of my pictures and like a life-size statue. I would love that.
Because the police come in next and like connect them with yarn. Like, go.
So in India, whenever they would have these like photo development studios, like, where you would take your little camera roll and they would do that, the Kodak ones, all the Kodak ones always had like a life-size woman standing outside who was like the Kodak woman. Yeah, and she was like this big life-size cutout. And I remember I was like 16 and I looked at it once and I was like, I want a life size cutout of myself
You
one
know, we
day.
can order you that on the internet, right?
We should.
Easy
I'm just
peasy.
gonna keep it at home when I go to work, so my dog doesn't feel like I have so many animals, and they'll all be like, "Mommy's here." Mommy's strangely quiet, but she's here. And then I leave one at work, so when I leave, all of my coworkers will be traumatized. I would love
Yes, they
that.
will. Yes, they will.
I don't mind the room full of pictures in Chandani.
Let me ask one other question. I very much enjoyed this very filmy book.
Yes.
I have a whole shelf full of books on Hindi cinema. And
Mhm.
I'm saying specifically Hindi because that's mostly what they are. Many of them are very good. What's on your, do you have a filmy reading list? Like, is there another book we should read for the podcast sometime soon?
I don't really have one because I don't want to read autobiographies or biographies of people where they're just very like goody goody and fake, because then what is the point?
Yeah.
And there are some biographies that if the star doesn't have any input, I'm not that interested. Like I would love to read a book on Rekha, but I don't think she's ever written an autobiography.
There's
And
a
then I feel
biography
like
of her.
right, but I
Yeah.
don't know how good it is. So I don't really have any other filmy books on my shelf. I think Khullam Khulla is like perfect because it's a very candid star, as candid as he's going to be in his own autobiography, and presenting himself in as valorized way as he can. It's kind of sort of the sweet spot for me, where I'm interested in the star. Like Shatrughan Sinha has an autobiography. I don't want to read it. I don't care.
Yeah. Although
Like
he
who
might
cares?
have good gossip about that
He
same
would have good
era.
gossip
So I
for
should dig into
sure.
that probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anyone else that I'm like particularly interested in reading about, but I really would love to read an autobiography, a good one on Rekha. That would be very interesting to me. I would also love to read something on Simi Garewal for some reason, because she also comes across as someone who has all the tea.
Oh, sure. Well,
yeah.
she got her own show. She's going to have her own
She
tea.
has her own show. Yeah. She's really funny. So if you follow Rendezvous with Simi Garewal on YouTube, like if you subscribe to it, sometimes commentators write really shady comments. Like, they'll write something like Rendezvous is so much better than Coffee with Karan. Coffee with Karan is trash. And Simi Garewal likes them.
Nice.
She actually likes those comments.
You go, Simi.
It just makes me so happy. It's so petty and I love it. So she's another person that I think would have really good like tea and stuff like that. What about you? What is there a filmy book you want to read next?
Yeah, I mean, so I get academic books on film from the university library and I then don't read them. So I have several sitting on my shelf that I need to read. There's one I don't want to admit to not having read yet because I really should have read it, but there's a lot of good ones out there.
Okay.
If you have not read Asim Chabra's biography of Shashi Kapoor, that's very good.
Okay.
It's very good. And in my opinion, it is not academic, but it is all the good things about an academic book, in my opinion. Like it's very well researched. It's just because so many film books, people just like say stuff and there's no evidence, there's no chain of citation, there's nothing. And you're like, I know. You sound like you could be making this up. There's also a very good biography of Parveen Bubby that came out a couple of years ago that I think I've already recommended, but that's quite good. And then there's a book. I haven't reread this, but there's a book that one of the Sippies did a couple, like, I want to say like 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more, called Lights, Camera, Masala. That's kind of a coffee table book, but because of the access this person has, right, that the photos are really quite lovely. So there's a lot of good books out there. There's a lot of trash ones too, but there's a lot of quite good ones. And if you want my academic reading list, you can tag me in the comments or tweet at me and I will show you what's on my nightstand. That, my problem is I mostly read before bed and I'm too tired to read academic books before bed. So all I need to do is read it 1 p.m. instead of 9 p.m. and I can do it.
Right. Yeah. My reading list is almost always fiction and it's always as creepy as possible. Like it's always eerie and creepy. Like I'm reading a book right now and it's about this cult in the northern islands of the British Isles and it's very creepy and people have been murdered. There's like bodies falling apart left and right. It's amazing. But my bedtime is at night.
Britain has a very high fictional murder rate.
I love it. It's wonderful. And I'm not a cozy mystery fan. I don't want cozy mystery. I want like
upsetting
like bad, like upsetting and very terrible. But my reading time is literally at 9 p.m. because like I go to bed at 9 and my reading time is 9 to 10. And then at 10 p.m. I put my Kindle away. But so the problem is then I have very bad dreams.
Cheap
None of my friends, well, the thing
it.
is, none of my friends have any sympathy for me because I'll be like, oh, I had the worst night. And they'd be like, you look like crap. And I'm like, thanks. It's because I'm reading this book. And then they're like, why would you read that at night? And I'm like, because that's what I like to read. So anyway. Okay, so thank you for joining us for this episode on Khullam Khulla. We drank our tea and we spilled the tea. Well, actually, the ghost of Rishi Kapoor spilled tea. Let us know if you have read the book. It's available in a Kindle format, a book format, as well as an audiobook. And it comes in 2 languages. In English, it's called Khullam Khulla. Yep, in Hindi, it's called Dil Se, which I
That's
was like, that is a Shah Rukh Khan
great.
movie. Yep, it comes in
I'm glad
Hindi as
it's in
well.
Hindi too. That's great. It should
Mhm.
be. Great.
They want everyone to get the tea.
But she's like, look,
So
if I'm going to say it, it's out there. Everybody get it and buy a copy.
exactly. So if you read it, it's a pretty fast, breezy
Oh, yeah.
read. Yeah, I got it from Amazon. I think Beth got hers from the library.
You will not have to look up any words in the dictionary.
Yeah. It's
It's
a
quite-
lot of fun. There's like cool photos at the end also,
Yeah.
like from his childhood and like from
And I had
studios
not,
and stuff.
I've seen a lot of Kapoor family photos. I had not seen these. So
These were really cool. So I highly recommend reading this. It's like a fun beach read as well. I mean,
yeah. Oh dear.
in it's
Sorry.
March, but whatever. That is not. Oh, what?
You froze for a second, so I was about to apologize and cut us off, but no, go ahead, finish up.
So let us know in the comments what you thought if you read it and if you haven't, and if you have any other gossip. We're huge gossip mongers, so we will take any gossip you have that you've read in like books or just heard from people. Just tell us what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Filmi Ladies. And thank you for watching.